Isaiah 24 through 27, we have really the global eschatological gospel in 4 chapters. It is a mini book of Revelation, and it's such a fascinating book. We have the removal of Satan and all forces of evil that have been causing and wreaking havoc and deceiving nations. We have the removal of Satan in this. We have the removal of all that's sinful. We have the salvation of Israel, and we have God vindicating His name and His plan and His purposes at the end of this age. And it's all nestled in these 4 chapters. And it's one of my favorite sections of the book of Isaiah. Of course, I say that about many of the sections. But when we start with chapter 24, it's such a clear view of what the earth will experience leading up to the final days before Jesus comes. It's very unfortunate, but it's the disintegration of human society. We see all these different groups that are just kind of no longer relating to each other anymore in the beginning of the chapter. The buyers, the sellers, the relationships are breaking down. Then we see the earth being emptied because of sin. It says that even humanity changes the everlasting ordinance. Instead of worshiping God, we worship ourselves. We worship the whole race, another image, and that causes the worst kind of climate change. That causes the worst kind of catastrophe on the earth. The earth is laden down with the curse of sin, and then because of God's judgment, it's teetering and tottering like a drunkard, or it's as frail as a hut, in a patch of a farm field. It's so frail and it's tottering, and that's because of the bowl judgments. Really, we're looking at Isaiah 24 near the end of the bowl judgments in the book of Revelation, and how it's being split open and emptied, and how human population's being devastated. So it's a really grim chapter, but really interesting. If you look at verse 16 in Isaiah 24, we see right around the darkest time of human history, a prayer movement exploding. See songs bursting out from the earth. Glory to the righteous one, to the Lord. And then right after that, we see Isaiah saying, woe is me, because I'm around a treachery. He actually uses the word treachery 5 times. He's looking at the betrayal of Israel in the covenant, this betrayal, this treachery. And he says that. Isaiah uses the treachery language quite a bit in the prophecy. And so he sees the worship movement, but he's also seeing Israel being betrayed. And he's saying, woe is me, this is terrible. And we're seeing how also the earth under the heaviness of sin. But things get a lot better in this section, because in Isaiah 25, after Jesus is punished the fallen angels, after he's come back and executed all the wicked kings, he sets his kingdom up in Isaiah 25 verses 5 through 8. He breaks the veil that's blocking every nation from knowing the Lord. He sets a feast up. He wipes tears from every face, from all peoples. Jesus becomes the Savior of the earth. And it's very inclusive language. It's not only for Israel, He's the Savior to all. And they're all coming and making pilgrimage, seeing Him, encountering Him in His glory. These are people in natural bodies. The whole earth is being touched by the Lord in His return. And then really this section has a lot of songs. Songs of Israel singing of the redeemed, that God is worth waiting for. His plans are righteous. His judgments bring correction. His judgments bring righteousness. And that Israel's rebuke has been removed. Actually, their whole reality is shifted in this section. Their salvation is completely realized. Their rebuke is gone. The original boundaries promised to Abraham, their borders have expanded. It's a large nation. It's a populated nation now. That Israel will bud and fill the earth with fruit. They're connected to Jesus, and they're going to be they're going to carry the aroma and the Jesus's qualities to the nations and impact the nations like a vine would spread across the earth. Israel's having that. And so we see Israel doesn't even remember, it says they won't even remember their oppressors in the coming age because of how good God is and what they're enjoying about His leadership. So this section, again, has some the very grim parts of the judgments and what the earth will have to go through, but also some of the most glorious parts and what the entire earth and Israel itself will receive in salvation when the Lord returns. It's a phenomenal section.